My friends, when we speak about betrayal, we often rush to judgment. We label the act of cheating as selfishness, lust, or weakness. But the truth is far more complex. Infidelity is not born in a single moment. It is the fruit of an inner conflict that was silently growing long before the betrayal occurred. People cheat not because they always desire another person, but because they feel a profound disconnection from themselves. The relationship becomes a mirror of their inner life. When they cannot face the emptiness, the wounds, or the shadows within, they seek escape in the arms of someone else. The real reason people cheat lies not in the body, but in the soul. They are searching for something missing inside, something they believe another person can give them. But no affair, no secret passion, can fill the void that comes from being untrue to oneself. Healing begins not with blame, but with awareness. When we see the roots of betrayal as spiritual hunger, we can finally stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and start asking, "What is it in the human soul that longs for more, even at the cost of love?" True daily guidance is this: to face the parts of yourself that you hide, to communicate honestly with your partner, and to remember that intimacy is not just physical closeness, but a meeting of souls. When two people grow together in truth, there is no space for betrayal. When we speak of infidelity, most people immediately reduce it to a matter of physical desire. The common explanation is simply someone was not satisfied, someone was tempted, someone gave in to passion. But this shallow interpretation misses the profound psychological truth that lies beneath. Infidelity is rarely just about lust. It is, more often than not, an escape, a desperate attempt to fill an inner void, to silence the quiet but unbearable emptiness that echoes within the human soul. If we truly wish to understand why people betray the ones they love, we must turn our attention inward, to the secret world of the psyche. Every person carries within themselves not only light, but also shadow, the parts of the self that remain hidden, unacknowledged, and unresolved. These shadows do not disappear simply because we ignore them. On the contrary, the more we repress them, the more power they gather. Eventually, they demand expression, and one of the ways they erupt into life is through infidelity. A man or a woman may cheat not because their partner has failed them, but because they have failed to confront their own inner fractures. They seek in another person what they have lost within themselves, a sense of vitality, of passion, of being truly alive. The affair becomes a mirror, reflecting back to them the parts of their soul that they abandoned long ago. And so, infidelity is less about the new lover and more about the forgotten self. Think of the individual who feels unseen in their relationship. Day by day, they move through routine, performing roles, speaking polite words, but never truly being met at the level of their heart. That loneliness becomes unbearable. But rather than face it, rather than confront the difficult truth that perhaps they have stopped showing up authentically in the relationship, they seek a shortcut. Another person appears, offering attention, validation, the illusion of intimacy, and suddenly, the inner emptiness is masked by the thrill of something new. But what is this thrill? It is not love. It is the temporary intoxication of escape. For a moment, the individual feels as though they have been rescued from their own despair. Yet, when the passion cools, the emptiness returns. Why? Because the real hunger was never for another body. It was for a reconnection with their own soul. The tragedy of infidelity is not simply the betrayal of a partner's trust, it is the betrayal of oneself. When someone cheats, they are turning away from the work of inner growth. They are choosing distraction over transformation. Instead of confronting the questions that haunt them, who am I now? What have I lost in myself? What am I afraid to face? They run into the arms of another and mistake that flight for freedom. And so, infidelity is not the story of weakness in desire, but weakness in self-understanding. It is a refusal to look into the mirror of one's own life. It is easier to find a new lover than to face the silent truths of the soul. But let us not condemn too quickly. For at its root, infidelity is a symptom of spiritual hunger. It reveals a longing to feel alive again, to rediscover the parts of ourselves that routine, fear, and suppression have buried. This hunger is not evil, it is profoundly human. The mistake lies not in the desire for wholeness, but in the misguided way people attempt to achieve it. If we want to move beyond betrayal, we must stop asking shallow questions like, why weren't they satisfied? Or, what was missing in the relationship? And instead ask deeper ones, what emptiness were they trying to escape? What silence within themselves became too loud to endure? What shadow was demanding to be acknowledged? The real battlefield of fidelity is not in the bedroom, but in the soul. When two people enter into a relationship, they do not merely bring their best selves, they bring their wounds, their insecurities, their forgotten parts. Over time, these unhealed aspects rise to the surface. If they are not faced together with honesty and compassion, they create a silent distance. One partner feels unseen, another feels unheard, and both drift into parallel lives while pretending to remain connected. It is within this void that temptation grows, not because of an irresistible stranger, but because of the unresolved silence within. What, then, is the antidote to infidelity? It is not control. It is not suspicion. It is not endless policing of one another's actions. The true antidote is inner courage, the willingness to face one's emptiness directly instead of escaping it. It is the daily practice of honesty, first with oneself and then with one's partner. It is learning to say, this is what I feel. This is where I hurt. This is what I long for. Only in such truth can intimacy flourish. To those who have been betrayed, hear this. Their cheating was not a reflection of your worth. It was not proof that you were inadequate or unlovable. It was evidence of their inner conflict, their inability to meet their own shadows with courage. To those who have betrayed, hear this as well: no affair will heal you. No secret passion will ever silence your inner emptiness. The only path forward is to turn inward and embrace the parts of yourself you have long abandoned. Infidelity is not a problem of the flesh, but of the spirit. Until one learns to be faithful to their own soul, they cannot truly be faithful to another. For fidelity is not simply about staying with one person, it is about staying true to oneself, about refusing to abandon one's own depth in exchange for shallow distractions. So let us shift our understanding. Infidelity is not only an act of lust, it is the cry of a soul running from itself, the restless search for wholeness in places where it cannot be found. The cure is not punishment, but awareness, not shame, but courage. For only when we dare to face the emptiness within can we transform it into fullness. Only then can we love another without betrayal. When betrayal enters a relationship, it rarely begins in the moment we imagine. We think of the secret meeting, the text message, the stolen glance. But the truth is that betrayal often begins years before, long before two people even met. It begins in the silent chambers of the past, in wounds that were never healed, in pain that was never named. The past, left unresolved, does not stay behind us. It walks with us into the present, shaping our choices, our fears, and sometimes even our destruction. Every person carries within them the story of their early wounds, childhood, family, first love. These are not just memories, they are the soil in which our patterns of intimacy grow. If we were abandoned, we may carry an aching fear of being left. If we were ignored, we may hunger endlessly for attention. If we were betrayed once, we may come to expect betrayal again. These wounds, if left unexamined, do not disappear. Instead, they burrow deep into the psyche, waiting for moments of weakness to re-emerge. When two people enter into a relationship, they bring with them not only affection and hope, but also the unseen ghosts of their past. These ghosts whisper into the present. They whisper doubts, insecurities, and longings. And when these inner voices are not understood, they drive us toward choices that betray both ourselves and the one we claim to love. Consider the person who was neglected as a child. They may carry within them a deep sense of unworthiness, a belief that no one will ever truly see or value them. Even when their partner loves them, even when affection is offered freely, they may not trust it. The wound of neglect tells them, this love is not real, it will not last. And so, they seek validation elsewhere. They cheat not because their partner failed them, but because the past convinced them they were never enough. Or think of the one who grew up in a home where betrayal was normal. A parent who abandoned the family, a promise broken, a trust shattered. That person may unconsciously repeat the same pattern, not out of malice, but out of familiarity. What was once pain has become a blueprint, and without awareness, they relive the cycle in their own relationships. This is why betrayal is so often misunderstood. On the surface, it looks like a failure of the present moment. But beneath the surface, it is a reenactment of the past. The wound demands expression, and betrayal becomes its language. The painful truth is this: we hurt others most deeply in the very places where we ourselves were once hurt. A person who betrays is often reenacting their own story of betrayal. They are passing on the wound, not because they wish to cause suffering, but because they have never faced their own. So what can be done? The first step is awareness. We must dare to look backward, not with blame, but with honesty. We must ask ourselves, what pain have I carried into this relationship? What scars from the past are shaping how I see love today? What old wounds still whisper in my ear when I try to give and receive affection? Healing does not mean erasing the past. It means facing it, naming it, and refusing to let it rule the present. It means learning to differentiate between the voice of the wound and the truth of the moment. Only then can we stop projecting our old pain onto the people we love now. Betrayal is not born in a vacuum. It is often the echo of yesterday's suffering replayed in today's life. To break the cycle, we must stop running from our past and begin listening to it. Only then can love become free, not weighed down by hidden wounds, but lifted by the courage to heal them. When we look at the painful reality of infidelity, we often imagine it as a search for excitement, novelty, or forbidden pleasure. But beneath the surface, the real story runs much deeper. People cheat not merely because they desire someone else, but because they are searching for something within themselves that they have lost, forgotten, or never discovered. Infidelity becomes less about the other person and more about the inner void, an attempt to reclaim a missing piece of one's own soul. Human beings long for wholeness. Deep within us lies a yearning to feel complete, to know that nothing essential is missing from our existence. But life has a way of scattering us. Through disappointments, fears, and compromises, we leave parts of ourselves behind. Perhaps we bury our playfulness because the world told us to be serious. Perhaps we hide our passion because someone once shamed us for it. Perhaps we silence our voice because we were taught that love means keeping the peace. Over time, we begin to feel hollow, as though some vital flame has gone out. When this inner emptiness grows unbearable, many people look outward for rescue. Another person appears, someone who reflects back to them the qualities they lost in themselves. The flirtation feels intoxicating, not because the other person is extraordinary, but because they awaken something buried inside. The thrill of the affair is not about the new lover. It is about the rediscovery of the self. Think of the man who feels trapped in responsibility. He has become the provider, the problem solver, the one who carries the weight of others' expectations. But in doing so, he has buried his sense of adventure, his childlike spontaneity. Then, he meets someone who makes him laugh again, who invites him into lightness. Suddenly, he feels alive, not because she has given him something new, but because she has reminded him of the part of himself he abandoned long ago. Or consider the woman who feels unseen in her long-term relationship. Over the years, she has silenced her desires, dimmed her vitality, and played the role that was expected of her. When someone else notices her with fresh eyes, she feels radiant again, as though she has rediscovered her worth. But in truth, it was always within her. The affair only mirrored it back. This is why people cheat. Not because the other person is their missing half, but because they mistakenly believe someone outside themselves can restore what they lost within. They do not yet realize that the missing part is not out there. It is waiting inside, longing to be reclaimed. The tragedy is that this search through another person never lasts. At first, the affair feels like medicine for the soul. The missing piece seems found. But slowly, the same emptiness returns because no external person can permanently heal an internal wound. The borrowed light eventually fades, and the individual is left facing the same void, now complicated by guilt, secrecy, and pain. The real path to wholeness is not through betrayal, but through courage. It requires us to turn inward and ask, what part of me have I abandoned? What qualities did I silence to survive? What dreams, passions, or truths have I hidden out of fear? When we begin to reclaim these missing pieces within ourselves, we no longer need another person to complete us. We can approach love not from emptiness, but from fullness. Infidelity, then, is not only a betrayal of a partner, it is a betrayal of one's own soul. It is the refusal to do the inner work of becoming whole. But when we dare to face that emptiness directly, when we begin to recover our own lost parts, we discover that the love we seek has been within us all along. And only then are we capable of loving another without using them as a mirror for what we refuse to find in ourselves. When people speak of infidelity, they often frame it as nothing more than a broken promise. They say, "He betrayed his vow," or "She broke her commitment." And while it is true that cheating violates trust, to stop there is to miss the deeper reality. Infidelity is not only the breaking of an agreement between two people. It is the outward sign of an inner hunger, a hunger of the soul that has not been fed. Human beings are not satisfied by routine alone. We may have comfort, security, even loyalty, but if the soul is starved, something within us begins to wither. There is a dimension of life that longs for meaning, connection, passion, and transcendence. When that longing is ignored, suppressed, or dismissed, it does not simply disappear. Instead, it grows restless. It begins to whisper in the dark corners of the mind, "There must be more than this. There must be something deeper, something beyond the surface." Cheating often emerges as a misguided attempt to satisfy this spiritual hunger. The act itself is not only about desire for another body, it is about the desire to feel alive again, to break free from the numbness of existence, to touch something that feels sacred. The affair becomes a symbol, not of love, but of longing. It is the soul's rebellion against a life that has grown too narrow, too controlled, too disconnected from its deeper needs. Imagine the person who has spent years living dutifully, fulfilling every responsibility, meeting every expectation. On the outside, they appear strong, dependable, even admirable. But inside, their spirit has been suffocated. They have lost touch with their creativity, their passion, their vitality. When temptation comes, it does not simply offer romance. It offers the illusion of freedom. The new connection feels like fire to a frozen heart. It is not merely attraction, it is the hunger for life itself. Or think of the individual who has always felt unseen at the level of the soul. Perhaps their relationship is functional, polite, even affectionate, but not deeply alive. They long for communion that goes beyond words, for intimacy that touches their essence. When another person looks into their eyes and seems to recognize that hidden depth, it awakens something primal. The affair becomes less about the person they are with, and more about the spiritual nourishment they have craved for years. But here lies the tragedy: cheating cannot truly satisfy this hunger. At best, it offers a fleeting taste, a temporary relief. Like eating sugar when the body longs for real nutrition, the sweetness fades quickly, leaving the soul just as empty as before. The hunger was never for another person. It was for wholeness, for authenticity, for a life that feels true. Cheating, then, is not only a moral failing, it is a symptom. It reveals the aching human condition that without depth, without meaning, without soul, we seek substitutes. Betrayal becomes the desperate attempt to grasp something sacred, without realizing that the sacred cannot be stolen or borrowed. It must be cultivated within. So if we want to prevent betrayal, we must ask deeper questions. Not simply, will you remain faithful? But how will we nourish the soul of this relationship? How will we keep alive the spark that makes love more than routine? How will we honor the hunger for depth in each other? For when the soul is fed with truth, intimacy, and growth, there is no need to search elsewhere. Cheating reflects not only broken promises, but unmet spiritual hunger. It is the cry of a soul starving for meaning, disguised as passion. The solution is not control or fear, it is awakening. When we learn to feed the soul with honesty, depth, and presence, betrayal loses its power, and love becomes what it was always meant to be, a sacred union of two souls who are fully alive. When betrayal strikes, the wound it leaves can feel unbearable. Trust shatters, love trembles, and the ground beneath two people seems to collapse. In that moment, it is tempting to believe that healing is impossible, that once broken, the bond can never be restored. Yet healing is not only possible, it is essential. But it does not come quickly, nor does it come through blame, denial, or avoidance. True healing begins with 3 sacred steps: awareness, honest communication, and self-reflection. The first step is awareness. Awareness means facing the truth without distortion or excuse. It is the courage to look directly at what has happened, and more importantly, at why it happened. For many, this is the hardest step. The one who betrayed may wish to minimize their actions, while the one who was betrayed may wish to deny the depth of their pain. But without awareness, the wound festers in the dark. Healing requires light. Both must be willing to see, not only the betrayal itself, but the deeper roots that gave rise to it. Was there loneliness that went unspoken? Was there a hunger for intimacy left unanswered? Was there a part of the self that was abandoned long before the affair began? Awareness is not about justifying betrayal, but about uncovering the truth that lies beneath it. Once awareness is present, the second step is honest communication. Betrayal thrives in silence and secrecy, healing grows in openness. This does not mean shouting accusations or defending oneself endlessly. It means creating a space where both voices can be heard without masks. The one who strayed must be willing to speak openly about their motives, their emptiness, their choices. Not to excuse them, but to reveal them. The one who was hurt must be able to express their grief, their anger, their confusion, without fear of dismissal. In this way, communication becomes a bridge across the brokenness. It allows both individuals to meet each other not as enemies, but as human beings facing a shared wound. But communication without self-reflection is shallow. The third step, self-reflection, is what gives healing its depth. For the one who betrayed, self-reflection means asking, what part of myself was I running from? What truth was I unwilling to face? What hunger drove me to seek outside what I should have nurtured within? Without this inner work, the pattern will repeat, even if forgiveness is given. For the one who was betrayed, self-reflection does not mean blaming themselves, but exploring their own relationship with vulnerability, boundaries, and needs. It may mean asking, where did I silence my own voice? What fears prevented me from expressing my pain earlier? What do I truly need to feel safe and whole again? Healing, then, is not simply about patching up the relationship. It is about transforming the individuals within it. Betrayal forces both partners to confront themselves. The wound becomes a mirror, revealing what was hidden. If both are willing to walk the path of awareness, communication, and reflection, then the betrayal, as devastating as it is, can become a turning point rather than an ending. Yet, let us be honest, healing is not always about staying together. Sometimes awareness reveals truths too deep to ignore. Sometimes honest communication shows that the foundation was too fragile from the beginning. In such cases, healing may mean parting ways, but doing so with clarity and dignity rather than bitterness and blame. Whether a relationship survives betrayal or not, the essential work remains the same. Awareness awakens us. Honest communication frees us. Self-reflection transforms us. Without these, betrayal becomes a scar that defines us. With them, betrayal becomes a wound that, though painful, can lead to growth, wisdom, and deeper love, whether with the same partner or within ourselves. Healing begins not in forgetting, not in pretending, but in truth. And when truth is faced with courage, even the deepest wound can one day become a source of strength. In our modern world, intimacy is often mistaken for physical closeness. We are taught that if two bodies are near, if there is affection, passion, and physical connection, then love must be alive. But this is only the surface. True intimacy does not begin in the body, it begins in the soul. It is not measured by how often two people touch, but by how deeply they can reveal themselves to one another. When truth flows freely between two hearts, betrayal finds no space to exist. The body can be touched while the soul remains untouched. Many relationships survive on physical closeness but starve for inner connection. Partners live side by side, share routines, share beds, even share years of history, yet remain strangers in the deepest sense. They do not reveal their fears, their hidden dreams, their doubts, or their unspoken pain. They present masks to each other, believing that love can thrive without truth. But beneath the surface, the soul longs for more. It hungers for recognition, for authenticity, for communion that goes beyond flesh. When this hunger is ignored, temptation arises. The affair does not always begin because the body was unsatisfied, but because the soul was unseen. Another person comes along, offering not only attraction but also attention to the unspoken depths. The betrayed partner often asks, "What did they give you that I could not?" And the painful answer is often this: they gave me the space to be myself, to be honest, to feel alive in my truth. This is why truth is the foundation of intimacy. Without it, love becomes fragile, sustained only by appearances. With it, love becomes sacred, rooted in the meeting of two whole beings. When you can look at your partner and say without fear, "This is who I am, even in my flaws, even in my shadows," and they can do the same, intimacy deepens into something that no betrayal can replace. But truth is not easy. It requires courage. It requires the willingness to be vulnerable, to risk rejection, to lay down the armor that protects the ego. Many people avoid such openness, believing it will weaken them. Yet the opposite is true. Truth strengthens love. It creates a bond where secrets lose their power, where masks are no longer needed, where both souls can breathe freely. True intimacy is not about perfection. It is not about never feeling desire for another, never experiencing loneliness, never struggling. It is about facing these realities together with honesty. When two souls are united in truth, even the storms of temptation cannot uproot them. For betrayal does not grow in the soil of transparency, it grows in the silence of what is hidden. Imagine a relationship where nothing is concealed. Not the pain, not the longing, not the shadows we fear to admit. In such a union, there may still be conflict, but there will not be deception. There may still be challenges, but not betrayal. Because betrayal is the act of hiding, of turning away from the truth. And when truth is present, betrayal loses its ground. To love someone at the level of the soul is to say, "I see you, not only your beauty, but also your darkness. I accept you, not only when you are strong, but also when you are broken. And I offer the same of myself to you." This is intimacy that transcends the body. This is intimacy that endures. In the end, bodies may age, passions may shift, circumstances may change, but a union built on truth remains unshaken. For it is not rooted in the temporary fire of desire, but in the eternal flame of authenticity. And where truth reigns, betrayal has no power, because nothing is missing, nothing is hidden, and nothing needs to be sought elsewhere. My friends, we have journeyed together into the hidden depths of infidelity, not to condemn, not to excuse, but to understand. We have seen that betrayal is never only about lust or broken promises. It is about emptiness, about wounds carried from the past, about souls searching for their missing pieces in places where they cannot be found. Cheating is not merely the failure of a moment. It is the cry of a spirit that has lost its way. It reflects hunger for meaning, for connection, for authenticity. Yet the answer is not escape. The answer is awareness, honest communication, and the courage to look within. For only when we face our shadows can we discover the light we have been running from. True intimacy is not of the body alone, it is of the soul. When two people dare to meet in truth, when they speak without masks, when they accept each other's darkness as well as light, then love becomes sacred. In such a union, betrayal loses its ground, because nothing needs to be hidden and nothing needs to be sought elsewhere. So let this be our daily guidance. Do not seek completion in another before you have faced yourself. Do not run from the wounds of your past. Bring them into the light. And above all, choose truth. For when love is rooted in truth, it can endure storms, heal betrayals, and grow stronger with time. Remember, the greatest act of fidelity is not only to another, but to your own soul. Be faithful to who you are, and from that fullness, give love. In this way, we transform betrayal into wisdom, emptiness into wholeness, and relationships into sacred unions that nothing can destroy.